Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. I've been talking a lot about the whole World War III thing here lately. I know, I get it. Some of you get tired of that because it's been something that's been talked about for a while and it hasn't happened yet, right? Well, today, news is saying that Israel is maybe just hours away from attacking Iran. And that doesn't necessarily mean World War III, but it probably gets us a little bit closer. And I've talked about what China has said, Xi Jinping, what North Korea is doing, what Russia's doing, what Ukraine, what NATO's doing. We've talked about the whole election and how it's just getting all wacky and weird, and how I personally am more, not really nervous, but I think we're in for a worse ride than probably what a lot of people think, simply because right now in the news, they're talking about how Trump has such a massive lead over Kamala Harris that, he's up, 20 some points ahead of her. And if the election happened today, he would be a shoo-in. It'd be a landslide, almost like back when Reagan, had his big landslide election. And all of that, I think, has some not good things. Also, gold and silver are in like record territory. Silver's not quite record, but it's definitely the highest it's been in over a decade. And gold is most certainly breaking records almost on a daily basis. And over the last 3 weeks, we've added like $500 billion in debt to the national deficit. And over the last 4 or 5 years, we have printed more money than ever before combined. If you go back from the very first day that the United States started printing money up until about 5 years ago, in the last 5 years, we've printed more money than then. A lot more, a significant amount more. And when nations do that, they do that because they know things are bad. So they're trying to print money to cover up things. It's like throwing a Band-Aid on it. Even though, they're bleeding out, like it's an arterial bleed, and they're bleeding out, so they stick a bunch of Band-Aids over it, hoping that that'll fix it. And all this stuff that's happening, there may be something that's even worse than World War III, because we have 3 different things going on at the same time. Well, there's more than 3 things, but for the sake of this argument in this video, we have 3 different things going on at the same time that all lead us potentially, or maybe not lead us, but they are ingredients. Each one individually are necessary ingredients for this bad outcome, and we have all 3 of them. All 3 aren't necessary at the same time, but any one on their own are necessary. And now we have all 3 of them. And that's major World War III scenario, economic collapse, and just, this election where there's such a massive divide in the people. And any 3 of those things can lead to a civil war. And it's quite possible that in some form or fashion, that's where we're headed. You have to understand that the people that are wanting to implement this new world order, great reset, beast end time system, they want things to fall apart. They want it to be in a big state of collapse. In fact, they've said that for many years. If you start really reading and listening to the things that these elites talk about, the top tier people, they talk about how people are going to be angry and there's going to be chaos. And it has to be that way so that we can bring about this change. Because people aren't going to accept this dystopian, totalitarian type of new tomorrow if things are okay. And while you might say, well, things aren't okay right now. That's true, but they're not bad enough yet for people to reach that level of desperation. It has to be really, really bad. It has to be really bad for the whole world to give up all of their independence, their rights, their autonomy, and be under this new world order. And that's exactly where they want us to be. So you see this election thing going on. In the beginning, when Kamala first came out as the new nominee, even though she wasn't actually nominated, and a lot of people immediately like, oh man, you got this young woman against this old white guy. she's just gonna land, even though you and I knew that she was, her IQ was slightly more than some of these rocks over here on the other side of the creek. We knew that. Well, now they're saying that, I think they said she's raised $1 billion now, or there's been like $1 billion raised to get her into office, and it's still not doing any good, according to the poll numbers. And to me, those poll numbers, we all know the poll numbers are garbage. We all know they aren't true. They never are. But I think we're seeing a narrative being developed to create more anger. Think about it. Think about it. The way the election's been going, and all the numbers showing that Donald Trump is way ahead, that he's got this in the bag. And then the election's had, and they come out and say, oh, well, guess what? Kamala Harris became the president. She won. Maybe not you, not me, but how many people would get so enraged that they would rise up and go to the streets and maybe even take violent action over something like that? At the same time, the economy's kind of starting to go into a tailspin. Gold's going up, BRICS and all this digital currencies from other nations is getting bigger and bigger. More and more nations are dropping the US dollar. And if they started to see that there was more problems, big problems here on the home front, they would probably have less and less faith in the dollar. So it could potentially cause the US dollar to spiral. At the same time, to distract from that, they would most likely start to increase war elsewhere, because they got to rally the troops, the actual troops, and the citizens, and hope that going to war, in a big war, because of some false flag attack, would kind of distract them from the complete criminal of an election. All of this, and don't forget the several millions of illegals that's come across the border, that it wasn't just a coincidence that they decided to come here, and it wasn't just a coincidence that they let them in. It was all for a purpose, because they have a job to do also. They have a job to do when it gets to that, civil war kind of scenario. All of this combined, potentially happening in the next few weeks, or at least starting, a huge, huge recipe for disaster. Now, I'm not making any predictions that this is going to happen. In fact, to be honest with you, I would say right now the odds are still in the favor of the scenario that I just gave you not happening. But I would say as each day goes by and more events start happening day by day, we get closer and closer, that there's ever increasing odds that the scenario that I just kind of gave you, or at least something close to that, there's ever increasing odds that it will happen. And if that happens, or something in that nature, something sort of in the ballpark of that happens, then that is really exactly what's needed for this New World Order global reset to happen. They want it to be finalized for the most part by the year 2030. That's what they say. They want most of the plan to be implemented by the year 2027, which is just 2 years away. And so if you have, say, the next 12 months or so of wars and civil wars and chaos and collapse, it wouldn't take too much to start implementing all this stuff and say, I know things are bad, folks. Everything's falling apart. Your money doesn't buy anything. Wars and chaos and stuff everywhere. We have this big plan. And if everyone just gives up all this stuff and does this, we have all this technology that just happens to be set in here that we've developed over the years. These ways of tracking things, giving you free, universal income on your digital ID and all this kind of stuff. We can fix these problems, right? We can fix these problems. This is very possible. I know that most of you are sitting there saying, maybe not most, but there's definitely some of you are watching this video and you're thinking, this guy is a lunatic. This crazy bearded hillbilly doesn't have any clue what he's talking about. He's just trying to get clicks and get views. He's just trying to be dramatic and hype things up. Has no clue what he's talking about. But there's a bunch of you watching this video that's sitting there saying, as bad as this sounds, I think it has a real possibility. And we have to be ready for that. I've talked for years on this channel trying to tell people that it's not just one thing or this thing or one piece of this puzzle or this piece over here of this puzzle. It's a whole picture that they're building. And most of the time when you see a puzzle piece, you cannot imagine how it fits with this puzzle piece over here. But it all fits in the big picture. And that's exactly what we're seeing happen. All these events that you see daily in the news, that you hear about on all these YouTube channels and different things, the podcasts and stuff that you watch, they're all being done for a purpose. It's all part of this big, greater plan. And we're getting to the point that it's becoming much, much easier to see how they're all connected into a bigger plan. And the closer we could get to this election, the closer we get to major war in the Middle East, the closer we get to a major war in Europe and in Asia, and the economy collapsing, the dollar getting weaker, the more and more illegals come across the border, the higher and higher violent crime gets, all of this stuff, the closer we get to the day that this is being implemented. You know, AI is about ready to take over, they say. Digital currency is just right around the corner. Digital ID, oh, it's already here. People are already lining up so that they can, pay by waving their palm over some scanner because, a microchip or some biometric ID where it's just digitally removed. That people are wanting this, social credit system. It's amazing, but people actually want it. And this whole election, this build-up and build-up that Donald Trump is going to win, this may be something that's going to bite everyone in the hind end and end up causing a lot of chaos. Now, it's always possible that Donald Trump is in on the whole game and him being elected president is part of the plan. That's possible. Just be ready, folks. I don't know what else to tell you. I know some of you are going to ask, what do you mean be ready? How do I be ready? You should know that by now. If you don't, shame on you. You better hurry up and learn. And go back and watch some of my old videos. There's all kinds of other videos that other people produce. Probably tell you a lot better stuff than what I tell you. But you need to be getting ready because while it may not happen, all the recipe, all the ingredients for the recipe that would bring about a real total destruction collapse are really already in place. And it just needs that trigger moment. And we're getting closer and closer to what could be that trigger moment. You need to get ready, get your houses in order, and prepare yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.